Hello and welcome back, everyone. I have to say that I am so proud of how well we've been working on our personal narratives this week. This is going to be the last video for this unit's writing project, so let's get started. I'm sure we already know the 5 steps of the writing process, so we're going to quickly go back over them before we move on to the next step. So we remember that the first step of our writing process is our pre-write, where we plan out and brainstorm our ideas. And we did that on Monday. On Tuesday, during class time, we wrote our first drafts. Those were the first complete versions of our personal narratives. We worked together and I was really impressed with how well you all gave each other compliments and suggestions on your writing. On Wednesday, we revised our work. That means we looked back over our writing, we decided which ideas we wanted to change or give more detail about. And tomorrow during class, we are going to edit. And you see a picture of an eraser because we're going to be changing our spelling, our punctuation, and our grammar mistakes. Lastly, on Friday, we'll all be able to publish. We're going to be able to present our final copies. I'm super excited about that. Today, we're working on editing. Before we move on, let's make sure we know exactly what our jobs are. We're writing personal narratives. We're writing about something that happened to us or something that we did for the very first time. Some of us were asking, do we have to have 3 paragraphs? Yes, you do. You have to have at least 3 paragraphs. Your stories cannot be any longer than 1 page. All right, here we have our 3 key features. Remember that a personal narrative tells about a real experience that happened to you. You're writing in first person, so you're going to be using I. And you're going to be using sequence words to tell about the events in the specific order that they occurred. When we're editing, we're asking ourselves 4 important questions. Here they are. Have I used complete sentences? So if you look back at your rubric, you know that I'm asking for you to use a variety of sentences. So you might have some declarative sentences. You might have some exclamatory sentences. You might even try to have some compound sentences. Our sentences should not have any more than 2 complete ideas. So those are compound sentences or complex sentences. But when we look back over our writing, if you notice that you have a sentence with 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 ideas, you're going to need to break those up into smaller sentences. Here's our next question. Are my spelling, capitalization, and punctuation correct? So I'm going to be helping you tomorrow to look at spelling mistakes and spots where you have capital letters where you shouldn't have capital letters, or spots where your lowercase letters should be made capital. And then we're going to look at our punctuation, making sure that we have commas and quotation marks and end marks for all of our sentences. Here's our third question. Have I marked the corrections that I need to make? So you're going to use some editing marks to show where things need to be changed. And our last question says, has someone checked my work? Like I said before, I'll be helping you to check, but you'll also have your classmates working along with you. So we'll be able to proofread our work before we have our final copies ready to be published. Here's my revised copy of my personal narrative. You all got to see this yesterday during your homework video. So what I needed to do was look through my personal narrative one more time, and now, instead of making changes to my ideas, I'm going to be making changes to my spelling, to my punctuation, and to my grammar. Let's take a look at what I've changed. Here's my first paragraph. The first time I flew on a plane is one of my favorite memories. I live in Pittsburgh, but the rest of my family lives in New York. That's where I grew up. One winter, I decided to go home to visit. So in my first copy, I made a mistake when I wrote the word Pittsburgh. See that? Pittsburgh is the name of a city. It needs to have a capital P. You also might notice that I got rid of this very last sentence here. And the reason why I did that is because I kind of told that same idea a second time in my second paragraph. I don't want to keep repeating myself because that's not very interesting. Let's look at the second paragraph together. I called my dad and we planned to surprise my mom and siblings for Christmas. We decided that I could arrive Christmas Eve and he would pick me up from the airport. I was excited to go home, but I felt really nervous too. I had never flown on a plane before, and I had no idea what to expect. Notice that I have some compound sentences here because I want to vary my writing. And I also found another spelling mistake. I spelled the word surprise with a Z instead of an S. So when I edited my writing, I made sure that I made that correction. Here's the third paragraph. I packed my bags and bought my ticket. On Christmas Eve, I woke up early to get to the airport on time. When I got there, I had to wait in a long security line. Then I got to relax while I waited to get on the plane. There are two mistakes here. In my revision, I did not capitalize the C in Christmas or the E in Eve. That's the name of the holiday. Even though Christmas is the official holiday, the day before, Christmas Eve, should still be capitalized. Listen to me reread my last sentence. It says, then I got to relax while I waited to get on the plane. Waited is past tense. I need an ED. I didn't have that in my first copy, but now I do. Here's my final paragraph. After about half an hour, I boarded the plane with all of the passengers and waited for the plane to take off. Once it did, I looked out of the window to see that I was flying high up in the sky. It was so exciting. A few hours later, I was in my family's house on Long Island, New York. I got to spend a lot of time with my family, and that made me feel incredibly happy. After Christmas, I had to get back to work in Pittsburgh, so I flew home. I wasn't scared at all. So here, you might notice that when I wrote the word families, I wrote the plural version of families. I don't have more than one family. I needed to write the possessive form of families with an apostrophe S to show that the house belongs to my family. In my revision, I wrote that I was so happy. And even though I think the word happy fits to tell how I was feeling, I could be a little more vivid in my description. So instead of saying so happy, I said incredibly happy. It's a little minor change, but it helps to make my writing more interesting and more sophisticated, like a real fourth grader. I didn't make a whole lot of changes, but I made the changes that I needed to make. So tomorrow, we're going to work together to look really carefully at our writing and make sure that our spelling, grammar, and punctuation makes sense. Don't worry if you have more mistakes than I do. That's why we're working together. So tomorrow in class, we're going to sit down together, we'll edit our stories, and like I said before, we'll check for spelling, grammar, and punctuation mistakes. This is going to be our final video. You won't have homework to do tomorrow for reading. I want to congratulate you all on how hard you've been working this week, and I am so proud of you. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow.